So hi everybody, I'm James Ford and I'm the guiding teacher for Empty Moon Zen. Today I'd like to explore a little bit with everybody case 37 from the Book of Equanimity. A word before that, I asked a teaching colleague of mine, Mary Gates, the Zen teacher, to look at our YouTube channel, and she was very polite about it. But at the end, she offered, you guys all work from manuscripts, and from her that seemed to be a negative thing. And while I, as a longtime professional speaker, I have come firmly to believe that the Holy Spirit is vastly more likely to rest on the seventh draft than it is on stream of consciousness presentations. Nonetheless, it was a little prick at me, and so I'm going to inflict on you what happens when I don't actually work from a manuscript, but rather I do have some fairly detailed notes to try and keep me at least somewhere along the line of what might be useful for everybody here. So, the Book of Equanimity, sometimes called the Book of Serenity. My old friend, the Dharma teacher, Dosho Port, he likes to call it the Book of Taking It Easy. It's arguably one of the most important collections in our Soto tradition, and it's used by people in the Rinzai and the hybrid koan schools as well. I did a little bit of background digging up, and it was the original version, pre-publication, is attributed to Hongji Jingui, an early mid-12th century teacher in China. But it was first published with commentaries by his disciple, the master Wansong, in 1224. So it's a venerable document. Case 37. Guishan asked Yangshan, suppose someone asks you, how about someone who says all sentient beings are in a disorderly karmic consciousness and have no base to rely upon? How would you respond to that person? Yangshan said, if someone appears, I call to her. When she turns her head, instantly I say, what is that? I wait until she hesitates, and then I say to her, there is not only disorderly karmic consciousness, but there is no base to rely upon. Guishan said, oh, good. So, a delicious story. Guishan, early 9th century, his disciple Yangshan, 9th century. They overlap. What's really, I think, an interesting thing, we don't know where this fits into the story, but in the end of Guishan's life and in the middle of Yangshan's life, that's the period of the great anti-foreign persecution in China. It ran, I looked it up and I see several dates, 841, 842 to 846, which is when the emperor who promulgated the persecution died. It was a hard time. It was aimed specifically at Buddhism. A lot of minor religions got wiped out in this period. The Nestorian Christian tradition, for instance, which was counted as a Buddhist heresy in the by the government officials. This is where it ends. The luminous religion is a delicious thing and one that I love to come back to. But the important thing here is that these are really hard times that these teachers are working within and offering us something in our own hard times. Gui Shan and Yang Shan, they offer a particular style. They're particularly poetic. They love metaphor. They love imagery, and for me, I just love disorderly karmic consciousness. We'll come back to that. I was digging around, and one commentator talked about them and how they're linked, and they were particularly adept. This commentator wrote, quote, at deconstructing the traditional distinction between sudden enlightenment and gradual cultivation. And there's a couple of examples of that. One is once when the monks were all out picking tea leaves, the master, Gui Shan, asked Yang Shan, all day as we were picking tea leaves, I have heard your voice, but I have not seen you yourself. Show me your original self. Yang Shan thereupon shook the tea tree. Great response, intimate right there. And the master said, however, you have attained only the function, not the substance. We got the action, but where is the heart? And Yang Shan said, I do not know how you yourself would answer the question. The master was silent for a time. Yang Shan said, you, master, you have attained only the substance, but not the function. Gui Shan concludes the thing with, I absolve you from 20 strikes with the stick. These are, I don't know, there's just something kind of wonderful, and they're constantly pulling us back to the matter at hand, what it is that we actually do, and what else is true about that than merely what we see as we isolate ourselves and we're driven by our own fears, anxieties, longings, and things. So, back to case 37. Gui Shan asked Yan Shan, teacher asks his very far advanced student, suppose someone asks you, how about someone who says all sentient beings are in a disorderly karmic consciousness and have no base to rely upon? How would you treat that person? So, one of my mentors along the way, Joan Sutherland, once commented on this. There's a little clinical supervision, perhaps. There's an invitation here. What about this? And this is worth unpacking a bit. But first, his response. If someone appears, I call to her. I call to him. When that person turns their head, instantly I say, what's that? In this moment of turning, in this moment when we finally sit our butts on the pillow and we quiet ourselves and we take the posture of the Buddha, and in that moment, what is that? When we are meeting someone in extreme distress, they're hurt, they're wounded on the street, what is that? What are we being called into? And for me, I find this the whole question of the intimate way. Why I often call Zen simply the intimate way. This thing that we're doing, this practice that we're about, is very much about the practices, these disciplines that we engage in, the liturgy that we follow, the teachings that we do, but it really is that and what happens afterwards. What is this? And the callback is intimate. I think of that phrase in the children's game hide and go seek, Ollie Ollie Oxenfree. I've talked about this before. It's an obsession of mine because when I think about what practices we're doing and how we're living our lives and living in this world, I think of Ollie Ollie Oxenfree. If you're, I looked it up again, and it's kind of interesting. Nobody knows where the phrase comes from, but One speculation is that all ye, outs in free, implies that it's archaic and old, and it certainly is that. Other speculations are that it comes from a German game, and so one of the possible phrases that would fit would be alle Ochsenfrei, all also are free. For me, I don't know. I always hear, come home, all is forgiven. Intimate, the intimate way. So, back to Yang Shan responding to Wei Shan's question. He says, I wait while she hesitates, and then I say to her, there is not only disorderly karmic consciousness, but there is no base to rely upon. Notice it's slightly different. Both things are there. Disorderly karmic consciousness. Have you ever heard a better word for the inside of your skull? Certainly mine. I think about this world, and then I have that magic moment of noticing my thinking about this world, and disorderly karmic consciousness. In fact, it seems when I really pay attention, that's the play. That's the play of politics. That's the play of personal life. That's the play of every blessed thing rising as I notice it. Disorderly karmic consciousness. It's as intimate and personal as can be. But it's not the end of the story. There's this second part. No base to rely upon. There's that as well. And what is that no base? We have fancy phrases for this. This is emptiness. This is the boundless. This is, in a more analytical way, the lack of any abiding substance to anything. It also turns into this encounter that is a bubbling well that causes people out of that experience to start using theistic language sometimes. God, love, mysterious things bubbling from this openness, this boundlessness. For me, the turning in is always a mystery. I'm astonished at what I find, and it affects myself as I return to my disorderly karmic consciousness. It infuses it, it informs it, it reminds me that it's more than any definition that I ever give it. Some say, or less than anything that I give it, but it's a mysterious well, and it's there too. To which Wei Shan says, oh, good. I don't know what more could one hope for in a Zen story. Its way beats being beaten with 20 whacks from the stick, or even being absolved from 20 whacks from a stick. Instead, it's turning out completely from that moment where we are within our disorderly karmic consciousness, also aware of that base that doesn't exist. It's from that place I really believe that Dame Julian of Norwich, of mysterious mother of her mysterious origins, sang out to our hearts, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And I think of Wei Shan and Yang Shan living in those most horrific of times of the great persecution. And I think, Ali, oxen free. Come home. All is forgiven.